Breaking tonight, with his re-election campaign on the line, Joe Biden sits down for a high-stakes interview.
Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
Can I run the 110 flat? No, but I'm still in good shape.
What the president said, how it's being received, and the growing pressure on him to step aside. A summer strike shuts liquor stores in Ontario and leaves customers scrambling to stock up.
It's slim pickings. Obviously, there's been people in before me.
And a new report sheds light on what caused that massive Rogers outage.
All I see is a report that basically says, it's fine, nothing to see here, move along.
Why some say it doesn't go nearly far enough.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemanson.
After days of speculation and with pressure building to step aside, tonight a defiant U.S. President Joe Biden went prime time, refusing to back down in a crucial exclusive interview with ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos.
If you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
This interview tonight, part of a major push within the Biden camp to get past last week's damaging debate and try to salvage his presidential campaign. Paul Hunter now with more from the interview and the hurdles ahead as Biden tries to reassure voters and his party that he's up to the job.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
It was among the most anticipated interviews in memory for a sitting U.S. president. In an exclusive interview with ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos, at issue, the only issue for countless Americans. Can Joe Biden demonstrate he's capable of doing his job and that he's mentally fit to be reelected for another 4 years?
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes.
Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
Can I run the 110 flat? No, but I'm still in good shape.
Are you more frail?
No.
And on it went. Earlier, as if to underline, the age thing now follows U.S. President Joe Biden wherever he goes, walking on stage in Wisconsin with a pro-Biden crowd, and one of those cheering him on pulls out a handwritten sign. There it is. Pass the torch, Joe. The placard with its blunt message waved right at him.
A lot of discussion about my age. I know I look 40.
Biden is in crisis mode. His campaign for re-election seen by so many as in shambles
President Biden,
ever since that debate last week with former President Donald Trump, in which, at times, Biden seemed to full-on lose his train of thought.
Everything we have to do with, look.
More stumbles have followed in the days since. In a radio interview, he seemed to say he's, quote, proud to be the first black woman to serve with a black president. And he reportedly told Democrat governors this week he needs more sleep and shouldn't schedule events past 8 p.m. This as multiple Democrat lawmakers now publicly call for Biden to depart, and as multiple major campaign donors threaten to suspend donations until he quits. With Donald Trump's lead in some polls for the White House now widening, pressure for Biden to bow out grows. Even as he stood alongside Vice President Kamala Harris at 4th of July celebrations, there were reports a team of insiders is readying a plan for her to take over. But in Wisconsin, defiance.
Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race.
And Paul, any early consensus on how the interview tonight went for Biden?
Well, the early consensus seems to be probably not, though Joe Biden himself might dispute that. I think it's fair to say Biden seems to believe in himself more than fellow Democrats now believe in him, and that he believes his past, that he beat Trump in 2020, is proof he can do it again. Biden didn't stumble in the interview the way he has recently, but again, I think it's fair to say neither did he grab the reins and rise to show evidence that he has the energy and acuity to calm all the naysayers. And course, all of this with a looming election Democrats are framing as among the highest stakes ever, and with reports now that a key Democrat senator is gathering other senators for a heart-to-heart with Biden at the White House to tell him to step aside. One takeaway from Joe Biden with this interview is that he wants no part of that, Ian.
Paul Hunter in Washington tonight. And coming up, we have more analysis of Biden's performance. That's minutes from now on The Breakdown.
Sir Keir Starmer, Your Majesty. Your Majesty.
A handshake and an invitation to form government from King Charles today to brand new Prime Minister in Britain, Keir Starmer. Earlier, the former UK leader, Rishi Sunak, arrived for his own meeting to resign. This all happened quickly this morning, just hours after Starmer led his Labour Party to that landslide win. Briar Stewart now with his message to voters today and what they expect.
Britain's new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was cheered as he arrived at Downing Street after a landslide win.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
Even before all of the ballots were counted, it was clear that British voters handed the Labour Party a big victory, and the Conservatives a humiliating defeat. Under leader Rishi Sunak, the Tories won their fewest seats since the party was founded nearly 200 years ago.
I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss.
He said he would step down as party leader, but not right away. Shortly after Sunak was out, a procession of soon-to-be Labour cabinet ministers arrived one by one as government business got underway.
Most governments go through some kind of honeymoon.
This political scientist says despite the outcome, there doesn't appear to be overwhelming public enthusiasm for Labour.
Oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. I think Keir Starmer had brought the Labour Party back into the centre of British politics and given people at least a safe alternative to vote for, which they didn't feel they had.
Millions also cast their ballots for smaller parties. Britain's Liberal Democrats walked away with around 70 seats, while Reform UK, a right-wing party, won 5.
You're going to bring us division.
Its leader, Nigel Farage, was heckled during his press conference, a sign of the simmering divisiveness. The new parliament will meet next week, but there are no illusions that the much-promised change will be quick.
To change our infrastructure, our healthcare systems, it's going to take 10 years.
I think it hopefully will change. Let's stay optimistic, but I'm weary of it, so I'm sceptical as to...
So, Briar, day one is done for the new Prime Minister. What's expected from his government now?
Well, Ian, throughout the campaign, Labour promised change, but the party's platform has been described as very minimalist. Beyond certain promises like reducing waiting times in the healthcare system and hiring more police officers, there were very few details, including about how the government was going to pay for that. Now, while Labour begins to try to sort out the many domestic issues, Starmer is going to be off to Washington, D.C. next week for the NATO summit, his first international event as Prime Minister.
Briar Stewart outside 10 Downing Street in rainy London tonight. Hurricane Beryl hit Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, a popular coastal resort area, after leaving a path of death and destruction across the Caribbean. Beryl weakened to a tropical storm as it moved north, bringing heavy rain and strong winds, causing flooding, knocking out power, and downing trees in many areas. While it's lost its destructive force for now, Beryl is still on the move. It's heading over the Gulf of Mexico and could pick up steam to become a hurricane again on Sunday. It's expected to hit northern Mexico and southern Texas and Louisiana early next week. There are new details tonight about what exactly caused that massive Rogers outage 2 summers ago. A CRTC commissioned report looks at what the company has done to avoid another blackout. But as Marina von Stackelberg tells us, some worry it lets the telecom off the hook.
No internet, no phone, and no access to critical services like 911. 12 million customers were impacted by the Rogers outage for over 24 hours. Now, 2 years later, a summary of an independent report for Canada's telecoms regulator, the CRTC, provides new detail of how it happened. It says Rogers was doing a multi-step upgrade to its central routers. That should have been deemed as high risk. But because it was going smoothly, the risk was changed to low. So staff stopped doing extra testing.
It seems that an upgrade occurred, the right processes weren't in place. It probably wasn't tested properly as well.
Rogers employees removed a filter that controlled the flow of data. The network routers were overloaded with information and crashed within minutes. But what made it worse? The report says Rogers didn't have proper backup systems. One example, employees trying to fix the problem couldn't communicate since they all use the Rogers network.
It really showed a major vulnerability in our telecommunications sector.
The report says Rogers has made satisfactory improvements to its networks to prevent a similar outage from happening. It's also working on separating its wireless from its wired networks so one can't take out the other.
This kind of stuff makes consumer advocates' blood boil.
Those groups say this report gives Rogers an excuse to escape any more public scrutiny.
What I want to see is the CRTC telling Rogers what to do, how to fix it, giving them timelines, how much they have to report to consumers going forward. I hear none of that. All I see is a report that basically says, it's fine, nothing to see here, move along.
Rogers would not give CBC an interview, but says in a statement the company is recognized globally as the most reliable network in Canada. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Unemployment hit its highest level in more than 2 years last month, with young Canadians taking the brunt of it. The economy losing 1,400 jobs in June, and the unemployment rate for youth aged 15 to 24 went up to 13.5%. That's the highest in a decade, excluding the early days of the COVID pandemic. The job numbers are a key point of data for the Bank of Canada to weigh ahead of its next interest rate announcement later this month. In Ontario, the future of where alcohol can be purchased is at the centre of a historic strike tonight. Thousands of workers at the provincial liquor retailer walked off the job. Katie Nicholson shows us how the push for more privatization is driving this dispute.
Just hours into the strike, and this little non-unionized gas station liquor outlet has been ravaged.
It was totally full, but right now it's half empty.
Some walked away empty-handed.
It's slim pickings. Obviously, there's been people in before me and stocking up.
At 1 past midnight on Friday, more than 9,000 Ontario liquor store employees walked off the job and on to picket lines after talks broke off. The sticking point, whether increasingly popular premixed drinks should be sold in convenience and grocery stores, something the union says will siphon profits and shutter liquor stores.
Our members see clearly that we are at risk of losing thousands of jobs across the province.
Provinces west of Ontario have diversified liquor sales with robust private retail options. Ontario distillers say they too would like to get more of their product on more shelves.
We'd love the more retail opportunity, and this is another good example showing what kind of problems it is for growing an industry in Ontario when you only have one retail option.
Many of those small craft distillers about to get a lot busier, already getting calls from new customers facing a potentially long, dry summer.
A lot of the people are asking for gins and vodkas. Had some people ask for stuff like raspberry sourpuss, which we don't do.
The strike, oddly enough, welcome news to organizers of Toronto's annual Salsa Street Festival, where booze was often smuggled in from the nearby liquor store.
I'm kind of glad they're on strike right now. The timing is perfect.
But Ontarians looking to crush cold cocktails on hot summer days may disagree, putting pressure on both sides to head back to the bargaining table. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Police in riot gear moved in this morning to remove a 2-week-old pro-Palestinian encampment in Montreal's financial district. Officers on horseback and others wearing helmets and carrying shields moved into Victoria Square just before dawn. Protesters left peacefully before city crews dismantled the site. A second downtown encampment on the grounds of McGill University is now in its 3rd month. The school's president says he's hopeful this morning's action is a sign police will soon clear the tents there, too. There's new cautious hope tonight for a deal to end the fighting in Gaza. Negotiations on a ceasefire and hostage release agreement are resuming. Julia Wong explains what brought everyone back to the table.
With roughly 120 hostages still being held in Gaza, this group of family members and supporters took to the streets in Tel Aviv, calling for the Israeli government and Hamas to come to an agreement.
There is a deal here on the table. We ask you, all of you, all the people that are involved in it, please make it happen. Please bring our children back home.
Hope is building as ceasefire talks gain new momentum with a possible breakthrough on a key sticking point. Hamas is reportedly no longer demanding Israel agree to a permanent ceasefire up front. After an initial meeting in Doha Friday, Israel said while there are still gaps between the two sides, negotiations will continue next week.
Middle East negotiations really only have two speeds, slow and slower. And while I think we probably are on the cusp of the best chance of reaching an agreement, I would still keep my enthusiasm under control.
Inside Gaza, Palestinians spoke with a freelancer working for CBC News about a possible ceasefire. One man says he hopes the end of this war comes with a better situation for the Palestinian people after this great destruction. I'm not optimistic, another man says, because many attempts have failed, and this time is just like the previous times. That weariness is widespread. This woman says her family has been displaced 9 times. She says they are now sheltering in a bombed-out school because they have nowhere else to go. We in Gaza are people who sleep with death and wake up to death, she says. We know that at any time we can die. The pressure to reach a deal will only continue to build, including from a crucial ally. Netanyahu will visit Washington later this month and will likely meet with the U.S. president. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
And some good news breaking late this evening. Canada has defeated Venezuela in a nail-biting penalty kick shootout at the Copa América soccer tournament. It has been a surprising run for Canada for their first appearance at this international tournament. Many didn't think they'd make it to the quarterfinals. Now the team goes on to the semis on Tuesday against Argentina. We're learning new details about Canada's biggest ever gold heist.
A large portion has gone overseas to markets that are flush with gold.
What police are now saying about the person suspected of driving off with the loot. Plus, for someone who was mocked for being boring.
Yeah, great. Just a bit grey. It's a bit monotone.
Keir Starmer delivered an astounding victory. Coming up, a closer look at Britain's new Prime Minister. Plus, a heartfelt homecoming for Alberta-born actor Owen Crow Shoe.
The Stampede means a lot to me.
We're back in 2. In California tonight, a dangerous heat wave is fueling a fast-moving wildfire near Yosemite National Park. Crews are bracing for a tough weekend ahead, with the heat expected to continue to grip California, as well as much of the West Coast and the southern U.S. Tens of millions of people are under heat watches and warnings. And in Alberta, crews are battling an out-of-control wildfire about 70 kilometers northeast of Fort McMurray. Provincial officials say the fire exploded in size yesterday to about 12,000 hectares. As a precaution, Suncor Energy says it's pulled non-essential staff and temporarily cut back production at a nearby oil sands site. We have new details tonight about the investigation into last year's stunning gold heist at Toronto's Pearson Airport. As Jonathan Gatehouse reports, in the wake of a CBC News investigation, police are now confirming key information, including what they believe happened to the gold.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Chair. I know you're all aware of Project 24 Carat.
A low-key update on a high-profile case. Peel police detectives appearing before a police board meeting on a summer Friday with no media present, filling in blanks about their 15-month investigation and confirming key details as reported by CBC News.
We believe a large portion has gone overseas to markets that are flush with gold. That would be Dubai or India.
We're damn good at it.
A sharp contrast to their self-congratulatory April press conference, where police said the gold had been melted down in Ontario and used to buy guns, with investigators responding to questions they'd previously refused to answer and admitting grudgingly that the missing 400 kilos are worth millions more than they have said.
From a police standpoint, the offense is theft over $5,000. It doesn't really change anything, in my opinion, the difference between 20 and 34 million.
Police provided new details about the relationship between their suspects.
Archie Grover, longtime friend of Parnpal Sidhu.
Most notably saying the owner of the truck that made off with the gold is a longtime friend of one of the accused Air Canada employees. And one more new police disclosure: the spiraling cost of their ongoing investigation. $5.3 million so far, estimated to rise to $10 million. A hefty bill for tackling Canada's biggest ever gold robbery.
I always question the police narrative.
This criminal defense lawyer says the public should be wary of how police frame big cases.
I definitely would not be surprised if some of the things that we've heard in these press conferences don't come to fruition.
An evolving story that may well change again, with trials likely years away, leaving mysteries surrounding the heist to linger. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
In Newfoundland and Labrador, the Roman Catholic Church has been ordered to pay settlements totaling $104 million to survivors of historical abuse. This is the latest step in a legal saga that goes back to 1987, beginning with charges against one priest, then expanding to a series of scandals. 292 victims have had their claims for compensation accepted, including those from the Mount Cashel Orphanage in St. John's. But the church doesn't have enough money to pay the settlements, so for years it's been selling off properties. Victims could begin to receive a portion of their money later this year. Joe Biden takes a political gamble to revive his presidential campaign.
No slipping.
But will his high-stakes interview stop Democrats from plotting a future without him? Next, we'll break down the must-see moments. Plus, his fiercest critics called him unoriginal and boring. But voters sure didn't care.
Yes, this is good. Again. That's it. Again.
Stronger. Andrew Chang takes a closer look at Britain's new Prime Minister. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Canada's Denis Shapovalov, one of 4 Canadians on the court at Wimbledon, taking on American Ben Shelton in the 3rd round. But this match, one of many suspended because of rain not long after it began, the tarp being put on the grass. Earlier in the day, Canadian Bianca Andreescu lost her 3rd round singles match to Italian Jasmine Paolini in straight sets. The Calgary Stampede kicked off today with a parade through the city, and this year's marshal needed no help with his horseback riding duties, while actor Owen Crow Shoe is co-starring in Kevin Costner's new Western film. As Allison Dempster shows us, he has deep family roots at the Stampede.
The role of parade marshal holds a special place in the Stampede tradition. It helps to be comfortable with horses and large crowds, and if you can pull off a cowboy hat, all the better. Owen Crow Shoe might be overqualified for the job. The actor from the Piikani Nation in southern Alberta has been coming to Stampede all his life. This, as they say, is not his first rodeo.
The Stampede means a lot to me, and it's really like one of my favorite times of the year.
For generations, Crow Shoe's family has had teepees at Elbow River Camp, a Stampede tradition celebrating Indigenous culture.
Oh, we lost it.
The wind took that one.
Crow Shoe got his start in the movie business as a stunt rider, following in his dad's footsteps.
I've come to a point where I'm not really shocked at his accomplishments anymore, because he's been doing some really great stuff, and he's a person that follows his dreams.
This summer, Crow Shoe is co-starring in Horizon, an American saga directed by Kevin Costner.
I take it as a great responsibility to shed some light on on the Native perspective of the Western genre. I think that this show does a really good job in the Native representation.
A Western tradition Crow Shoe is proud to be part of shaping. Allison Dempster, CBC News, Calgary.
Now we go deeper into the stories shaping our world. The UK's new Prime Minister may have won big, but what do voters expect?
The UK is probably ready for someone who is a bit less chaotic.
But first, has Joe Biden salvaged his re-election bid with tonight's primetime interview?
I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the doc's with me. I asked if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong.
Did he manage to make up for that disastrous debate? Chris Cillizza, CNN's former editor-at-large. And Chris, I want to start with the president's speech in Wisconsin earlier today. He gave a resounding assurance that he's still in this race. Here's an excerpt.
You voted for me to be your nominee. No one else. You, the votes. The voters did that. And despite that some folks don't seem to care who you voted for, well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
So, Chris, lots of energy there. He did say 2020 instead of 2024, but generally speaking, what do you make of his performance in Wisconsin?
Totally fine, Ian. Totally acceptable. If last Thursday night had never happened, we'd say, Joe Biden, he looks pretty good. He was good in the State of the Union. He's good on the campaign trail. The problem is, this is not eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. You cannot go back and erase bad memories from the American public. And that debate performance was, I think, so bad and so disastrous for Joe Biden that I just don't think anything he said in a rally, remember, he's reading from a teleprompter, he's in front of a supportive, at a minimum, crowd. This is different than a 90-minute debate facing Donald Trump live. And so he was totally 100% fine, except for the fact that 8 days ago, he put in the worst presidential performance in a debate that we've seen, certainly in the modern era.
Which brings us to tonight's interview on ABC, and let's play an excerpt, the president answering questions surrounding his performance at the debate with Donald Trump.
Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night. I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the doc's with me. I asked if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
So he looks not bad, Chris, in that excerpt, but you and I, and I'm sure many of our viewers, watched the entire thing, around 25 minutes long, I think. No edits. Yep. That was part of the deal going in. What was your assessment of the entire interview?
So it's interesting, Ian. I actually think this might be the worst case scenario for Democrats, and I'll explain why. Biden wasn't so bad that it sort of the conventional wisdom is, okay, he has to go now, right? At the same time, I didn't think he was so good and convincing, particularly if you weren't already rooting for him, that you would say, okay, well, I buy it. He just was sick and he was tired and everything is fine. So it's that middle ground. When you're playing tennis, you either want to be at the baseline or at the net. You never want to kind of be at the serving tee. I think that's kind of where Biden was. I think what you take from that interview, a lot of it is what you brought into that interview. I think if you like Joe Biden, you were rooting for him, you wanted to see evidence he was doing fine, that interview provided it. I just don't know that it's going to convince a lot of people. And I'll note, a majority of the American public already thought Joe Biden was too old to be president before last Thursday's debate. I'm not sure it's going to convince those folks.
And almost simultaneously with the release of that interview tonight is the news that some prominent Democrats are openly saying that the party needs to reconsider its plans for who carries the banner in the election tonight, the election in the fall. So how do you feel about what's happening now in the Democratic Party?
Yeah, so, you played the clip from the Wisconsin rally, and I believe Joe Biden believes what he said there, which is, I'm going to be the nominee, I'm going to beat Donald Trump. The problem is while the ultimate decision to say, yes, I'm running or no, I'm out is up to Joe Biden,
his hand, I think, is going to get forced here. I just think there's going to be a lot more Democrats who come out and say, look, whatever you make of it, the problem is people were worried about age before. He's the oldest president we've ever had in the United States. They're going to be even more worried about it now. And that impression left by the debate isn't going to be solved by an interview or a rally. It's not going to be solved. That's going to cost us maybe not just the White House, but a Senate majority, could cost us the House majority, and we can't risk that. It feels to me, having watched this for a long time over many years, the snowball is rolling downhill. It is getting bigger and bigger. The bigger it gets, the harder it is to stop. And I just think that's sort of where we are, whether or not Joe Biden in his inner circle are willing to sort of acknowledge it yet.
You worked at CNN, you're a political analyst, but you also have a pretty good sense of how the media works. I sense a shift in tone from George Stephanopoulos, who worked in the Clinton White House and works for ABC, has for many years, on CNN, watched the analysis tonight. I sense a shift in tone in terms of how tough the analysis is about Biden's fitness. Well, what's your sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're either at or near a tipping point here. I think, look, when you have the New York Times editorial board, the Washington Post editorial board, the Boston Globe editorial board, the Atlantic magazine, when you have all of these places that I don't think anyone would describe as sort of conservative redoubts in this country, when you have all these people saying, you know what, Joe Biden did a good job as president, but he simply cannot win, I just think you're seeing the tide turning a little bit. And I think the issue for Biden, I don't want to be a broken record, but the issue for Biden is 50+ million people watched that debate last Thursday. It was not just bad, it was disastrously bad. He looked out of it. He looked old. He couldn't finish answers. When he did finish answers, a lot of times, those answers didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. That, to me, is an issue. That's sort of a searing impression and confirms what a lot of people already thought. I just think it's extremely hard to convince people that something other than that he is too old to be president of the United States. I think it's going to be extremely hard. And I don't know if Biden sort of is aware of that reality or not, but I think he's going to be made aware, of that reality in the coming days.
Chris, really appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the big political story we're watching is the landslide win in Britain. Andrew Chang explains how Keir Starmer pulled it off.
Yeah, Ian, big victory for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party in the UK election last night. But it's interesting. Keir Starmer is a guy who has been called many things: bland, boring, unoriginal, uninspiring, uninteresting. How does a guy like that go on to win by such a massive margin? I'll explain in just a moment.
Why Keir Starmer's low-key style didn't stop him from winning 10 Downing.
It's known to some as no drama Starmer.
Polls suggest most voters don't care for the Labour Party leader.
He might not be widely liked, but he's not feared.
It turns out there are several reasons why boring worked. Here's Andrew Chang, host of CBC's About That, to break down this sweeping change in UK politics that's brought an end to 14 years of Conservative rule.
How does someone apparently so uninteresting, so uninspiring, become Prime Minister by such a massive margin?
It's just a bit grey, it's a bit monotone.
And it's not just that guy who thinks that. Keir Starmer has been called bland, boring, unambitious, also a milk tray man, which I've learned is a British thing, I think. But the headlines go on every which way imaginable to make the point that Keir Starmer is like political milquetoast. And not just in a shallow, performative way. He's been called a man who stands for nothing, with the dullest manifesto on record. And the Times called him an enigma, but not in a good way.
Keir Starmer is not the most charismatic or inspiring of party leaders, and probably won't be the most charismatic or inspiring of prime ministers.
And yet, British voters turned out overwhelmingly in support of Keir Starmer's Labour Party, delivering it one of the most commanding victories the party has seen in decades.
We did it!
The United Kingdom is waking up to a new political chapter this morning. The Labour Party has swept to power with a resounding landslide.
The Conservatives reduced to a rump, clinging on to just 120 constituencies.
Sir Keir Starmer entering Downing Street as Prime Minister.
If you don't follow British politics, what has just happened would seem to defy all logic. And look, I'm just a guy from Canada following from afar. But what has become clearer in the last few days, weeks, months? No, years, is that Britons have been starving for someone so dependably unexciting that Keir Starmer is just the man they're looking for. Keir Starmer inherited the Labour Party back in 2020, about 4 years ago. And just think of what it was like to live in the UK at that time. Peak pandemic, health services are buckling.
In the height of the COVID crisis, patients were on ventilators in wards transformed in days into intensive care units.
But a year later, Partygate would show the public that pandemic restrictions didn't quite apply to everyone. Inflation made life a struggle, Brexit made life uncertain, and throughout all of this chaos and upheaval, all this inescapable political drama, there was Keir Starmer.
Known to some as no drama Starmer. Don't expect him to be a flash politician.
Okay. Yes, this is good. And again, that's it. And again, try and breathe.
He's not a fighter, at least not in the traditional sense. And he's not just stiff in front of a heavy bag. His, at times, wooden approach has become something of a meme in British politics.
My dad was a toolmaker.
That line, my dad was a toolmaker, he's talking about his working class roots. Probably the most blue-collar upbringing a British Prime Minister has had in decades. But he uses that line about his dad a lot.
My dad was a toolmaker. My dad was a toolmaker. My dad was a toolmaker. He worked in a factory. It's true.
That last clip, you hear how people laughed when he said that. You know, I don't think it's meant to be mean-spirited. It's just that that line has come to represent how predictable Britons think this man is. And as we saw last night, Keir Starmer is only just now starting to get in on the joke.
Now, I may have mentioned my parents a few times in this campaign, once or twice.
In some ways, Starmer is like most politicians. For example, he does his best to sidestep embarrassing questions.
In an interview with Piers Morgan, you refused 14 times to answer if you took drugs. Could you clarify this?
I had a good time when I was younger.
But he also sometimes avoids pretty innocuous questions, too. In an interview with The Guardian, what they bill as his most personal interview yet, he can't really say if he's an optimist or a pessimist, an extrovert or an introvert, what he dreams about, his favorite books, his worst fears. And he's been teased for how generic even his campaign slogans have been over the years. Integrity, authority, unity, stronger future together, security, prosperity, respect. All criticized as banal and forgettable, sometimes even to him.
But it's not just the flag that drives our patriotism. As I said in the speech, it's really the values that lie behind that, the values I've outlined today of security, of prosperity, and respect.
Keir Starmer might not be wildly popular, he might not be widely liked, but he's not feared.
Now, I should say, it's easy to make a caricature of Keir Starmer as Britain's least interesting man, but there's a much more serious criticism of Starmer's uncanny ability to fade into the background. And that is, as his chief opponent argued, his lack of any conviction at all.
Keir Starmer's gone from embracing Jeremy Corbyn to Natalie Elphicke, all in the cynical pursuit of power at any price.
Let me explain what he's talking about there. Natalie Elphicke is a Conservative MP who recently switched sides to join Starmer's Labour Party. Rishi Sunak is calling him out for accepting a traitor, which, you know, happens in politics. But the more serious charge is over Starmer's embrace of his party's former leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Starmer, as an MP in 2016, was part of an open revolt against Corbyn's leadership. even gave up his post in Corbyn's shadow cabinet while openly calling for a change in leader. But Corbyn was re-elected as leader just months later. He survived the revolt. And who would be there by his side? Keir Starmer, as Corbyn's Brexit shadow minister.
He probably thought, to quote Lyndon Johnson, it's better to be, well, from his point of view, actually to be inside the tent pissing out rather than to be outside of the tent being pissed upon. So I think that's really a reflection of how he approaches his politics. It's pragmatism.
He's displayed an ability to be politically flexible when it suits him.
And many party leftists who once thought of Starmer as a champion in the fight against conservative inertia, they'd later make the case that he betrayed them, shifting his politics more to the center.
True democracy is citizen-led. Politics needs an update.
So how does a man like this, a man whose fiercest critics call unoriginal, unprincipled, uninteresting, how does he become prime minister by the widest margin his party has seen in a long time? Well, it's easier when the government you're trying to replace is as unpopular as it is.
We gotta get rid of them. 14 years is way too long.
I'm fed up with UK politics.
Everything became more expensive.
I can't see a dentist, I can't see a doctor.
There have never been more people homeless in the street.
Put another dickhead in charge, yeah, with a great smiley face when he's won, like, brilliant. But halfway through the year, we're back to piss poor again.
There is a widespread perception in the UK that public services are failing. According to an independent think tank in London, the National Health Service is in shambles. Prisons are in crisis. Personal finances are in ruin. Economic growth has stalled, and the civil service is strained.
It's experiencing unprecedented levels of relative decline compared to other advanced economies. There are these signs of real atrophy and decay.
Late last year, one of the country's biggest cities, Birmingham, effectively declared bankruptcy, forced to strip services, cut costs. Even street lights became dimmer.
There was obviously a case to be made for having someone sober, someone, a little bit boring, as a counterpoint to Boris Johnson, who was a bit of a clown.
The UK is probably ready for someone who is a bit less chaotic and maybe even a bit more boring.
It's probably true that if the Conservative Party wasn't in such disarray, some of Starmer's weaknesses might shine through a little brighter and might have hurt his bid to become prime minister. A recent Ipsos poll showed more Britons were likely to view Starmer unfavorably rather than favorably. But the alternative?
We can't go on with this Tory chaos we've had. It's been too much for too long.
Give the man a chance. We've had how many years of Conservative tyranny?
You voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now.
So Ian, long story short, Keir Starmer, for all of his faults, seems to be, in the eyes of voters, the right man for the right time.
Thanks, Andrew. You saw the headline, Larry the Cat. Well, Larry's ready and waiting to welcome Keir Starmer. He's our moment. Next. Meet Larry, a much-loved and much-watched British cat. That's because he lives at 10 Downing Street. Larry's already seen 5 different prime ministers come and go. Now he's waiting to meet his new boss. Larry the cat makes our moment.
He's what you would call media savvy. He's quite aware of things that are going on. As photographers, we photograph him a lot. He will always try and be in the frame, in the picture of an important event. Larry has that typical kind of mischievous nature that I think a lot of British people like. And he's always curious. Larry the cat is the chief mouser of Cabinet Office. He basically is in charge of taking care of the mice in Downing Street. First Prime Minister bringing him in was David Cameron. Larry was not leaving with David Cameron. He's actually staying because he's a civil servant. With Mr. Starmer, I've heard that he has a cat. I think his kids, they want to have a dog. Larry is the one who rules in Downing Street, so hopefully Mr. Starmer will understand that and allow Larry to do what he needs to do. Won't try to do anything silly, like bring a dog in. No matter what Prime Minister is in Downing Street, Larry will always be there.
Okay, personally, I find it a little disturbing that they do need a cat to keep the mice in check at 10 Downing Street, but I guess, you know, old buildings in England is what you have to do. And it's cool that it's a cat. Cats are pretty chill because, man, the Prime Minister loses the election yesterday. The new guy apparently was in 10 Downing Street today. Thank you for being with us. I hope you can join me Sunday afternoon for Cross Country Checkup. Our topic, facing pressure to step down from a job you love. And later that night, I'll be back here for The National. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. Have a great Saturday.